Free helper function is one type of helper function in C++. Helper function is designed to be helpful for the operation or uses of a class and its object. It is not a member function of the class, and it is designed to be used with or for class object. Helper function can be of two types. First is called a free helper function, and the second type is called a friend helper function. Free helper function does not require direct access to the private members of the class, whereas friend helper function does require direct access to the private members. Here we focus on free helper function. Let me begin with this code. I have a class called student with data members ID, name, and GPA to hold ID of the student, name of the student, and GPA of the student. We have a default constructor setting the data to the default value, ID, name, and GPA. We have a custom constructor which receives the data. It actually sets the current object to the default state first, and then it does a validation. If the data is valid, it will get copied to the data members. And we have a display function which actually does display ID, name, and GPA. In the main function, we have a statement to create an object. Let me call this st1, which actually receives ID, name, and the GPA value. So, and here we have the statement to actually to call the display function through these two objects. Let me first do the compilation, execution, and see the output of this code, and we'll go from there. So we have compilation and linking and execution. So we have this data displayed. So we are okay here. Now we are going to be using this code to talk something called free helper function. So free helper function is not going to be placed in this place. It is going to be some other function. In this case, we are using a global function, and that function is going to provide some logic with which can be used to which is designed to work with this class objects, so that we don't have to populate this class with a large number of member functions. So in typical real world scenario, you may have a class with, let's say, 40, 50, 60 member functions. In that case, the amount of code inside the class definition can be minimized by having the helper functions. So let me start doing that here. First, helper function, I actually want, let me, I want to actually see whether a particular object is an object with a GPA value, let's say, more than 3.0 is so if I want to know, if I want to determine this, then I can create a global function. Let me call this function, let's say, is GPA more than 3.2. This is a long name, but it is clear enough what we want to do. What we actually, the name actually is very clear enough about what this function actually is intended to do. And if we want to see whether this GPA more than 2, obviously you can guess that this function will return binary information, true or false. So return type will be bool, and we actually need an object to determine whether that object GPA is more than 3, I mean 3.2. So we want to pass an object student. Here we can return st dot I mean we need to access, to determine whether the GPA carried by this object is more than 3.2, then we need to access the GPA. So if you want to access, this available function does not provide that access, and since we are in the global space, we cannot access the private member. So display function does not provide you access to the GPA, and these constructors also do not provide you access. So uh, in this case, you may have to create one function here which is publicly accessible, not in the private space but in the public space, to actually get the GPA, sort of getter function for GPA. So it will return double type get GPA. I mean from the name of the function you can guess that this is going to be a query function, and you return GPA. So with the addition of this function, we are able to call that function from in this place, GPA, and greater than 3.2. So this is the entire logic of this function. So now we have this function. This is not a member function of this class, but this is a global function which is actually designed to work with the object of the class. Therefore, we call this as a helper function. But we this helper function does not require direct access to uh, the private members. Getting GPA through this function is actually getting is an indirect access to the private member. I think this should be GPA. GPA. So this is indirect access. So if we have a global function which uses the object of the class, but it does not require direct access, then that is called free helper function. And from the main function we can actually call this function is GPA more than 2, and you pass an object st1, and again you're going to have for st2 is GPA st2. And let me put a text before in the beginning as well, st1. And if you remember, if you have watched some of my previous videos, if you want to display this in the form of true and false, not in the form of 1 and 0, then you can set this for this library allows you to no, I think you can use I have not discussed about this manipulator in the previous videos, so let me just skip doing this. So you can set stcout dot set f bool alpha and std. So this will actually make sure that these are actually displayed as a true or false in the output. Let me do the compilation and linking. So I think there was I missed a semicolon somewhere. Let me go back to the code. here to the terminal. So now it is displaying st1 is the object with GPA more than 3.2, and this is also an object with GPA more than 3.2. Here actually, yeah. Switching back to the code, so here, yeah, 3.0. I think it should be 3.2. Back to the terminal. Right, yeah, in the first case it is false now, greater than 3.2, and then in the second case it is true now. So this is how you can actually create a free help, something called free helper function. And also, if for example, if I want to display this not by invoking this display function, but I want to display using some other functions, for example like this, uh, display st, right? So if I were to do something like this, then I can create a another free helper function called display. And if you want to, let's say, pass one particular cout, if you want to pass the cout object into it for displaying, then you can pass you can have the first parameter of type OSStream OS, and the second parameter can be, I mean, you can have constant st. Then in that case, you can, instead of using std cout, you can use this OS to display. And to use that OS, I think we need to make a small change here in the display. We can do something like this. We can make this function receive, let's say, std OSStream, and OS, and then use that OS to display instead of cout. And it's also possible that you can return it, return OS. So you can call this function here. Here, if you have this amount of change made, then when you call this function, you need to pass std cout here, std cout, and now with that display function, this is public function, so we can use that function here. What you can do is st.display and pass OS in it, and then after that you could return, let's say this function may have return type std OSStream return OS, or this function itself returns OS, so you can directly return that, because you have a return OS in this function. So instead of having a separate return statement, you can just directly return whatever is written by this display function. So this is a function that we can use here. To use this function, you need to pass the argument which are of type the parameters. So in the first case, we pass cout, and in the second case, it is going to be st1. Let me call this, and then this function will actually return cout, so that you can insert e and el, because this entire function will return cout, and you can have cout and insertion operator and l. And then after that, if you can, if you want to read, I mean, um, display another object st2, uh, then you can, because entire this operation will return cout, so you can pass this entire thing as a first argument in the display invocation, and then you can pass st2, and then after that you can pass in and here. So this is a way of I mean this first display function will display, and then it will insert a new line and display s1 object, insert new line, and it will display s2 object and insert new line after that. So let me show you the output. This is a, I mean this is a free helper function, just remember, because this is a function helper to student class, but it doesn't require direct access to the private members. It makes use of the public functions. So let me switch to the terminal, try to compile and see what output it gives. So there is a problem with this operator. So I think the problem is that we cannot make it constant, I guess. So uh, let me go back to the code. So the display, let me just do it step by step. First let me I just have to go for debugging this code. So let me uh, compile this first to make sure that this is okay up to this point. So it's okay. And now the problem with we have problem with this invocation. So let me just do the first invocation. So if it works, then we can go ahead from there. I think there is a problem. Oh, I think and L. So I think I should have noticed that before, probably. Yeah, maybe the problem is the and L. This might be the problem. To the terminal again. Yeah, I think that was the problem. So we have this first object displayed through that invocation, ID, name, and GPA, and we can do same. For example, whatever is returned, we can pass that as a, I mean, a first argument for the next invocation of display, and st2 and L. Right, so now you can see the first and second is displayed, right? So there was probably there was no need to insert new line character, because if you go back to the code, in the code we have yeah, this automatically inserts new line character, so we may not need that this new line character. But if I remove, I think it should be okay. Remove this thing here, then in that case in that case you also need to insert new line character, because you want to display this in two lines. I think this should be okay now. Let me go back to the terminal and try to compile it. So So now it is displayed. Okay. And finally, I will like to talk about something called let me go to the code. So something called free helper operator. Right, so it is kind of similar to function, but it is actually implemented by overloading an operator. For example, in this case, if you want to do this kind of operation through an operator, then I could just copy this, and I could, instead of having function name, I could overload the operator just to compare. Let's say comparison will mean that it will compare. I mean, uh, I think in this case we also need to pass the value. Let me pass the value, and you compare with value. In this case, no, you can use this operator to. I mean, you can call this operator in the format st greater than that value, and then it will return that particular thing. So let me use this thing. I mean, I can just copy this these 3 lines of the code, and here in this place, instead of calling this function, I could just do something like this. Uh, Greater than, let's say, 3.2. So when you are putting this kind of expression in insertion operation, always it is safe practice to put in the parentheses, because sometimes the precedence associativity of the operator may cause a problem. And similarly, we can also create a free helper operator for this. Let me just type the text here, free operator, and this is also free helper operator. Here we could, instead of having the name, we can overload this operator, insertion operator, and it will internally call the display function. Now we can, instead of having this kind of expression, we can do something like this. Let's say st1 cout, st1 st sorry st2. So this is a, I mean, more I mean, this is a kind of expression that we want to see. I mean, instead of this sort of expression, let us see the output of this code. So you can see it's working. So this was the result of the invocation of the operator, and this was the result of the invocation of the, I mean, operator, insertion operator overloaded. So this is all I have to talk on this topic. Thank you for watching this video.